Deep beneath the Vatican City, behind heavy doors that have been locked for centuries, lies a secret that could break reality. Most people think of the Vatican as a place of prayer, a sanctuary of faith, but for those who study the data of the unseen, it is something else entirely, a repository of forbidden technology. In the early 1950s, a Benedictine monk named Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed to have built something impossible. Not a time machine that moves people through the ages, but something far more chilling. A window into the past. A device that captures historical data directly from the atmosphere. They called it the chronovisor. Father Ernetti was not just a man of the cloth, he was a master of physics and a world-class authority on archaic music. He allegedly worked in secret with a team of 12 elite scientists, including Enrico Fermi, the man who helped build the first nuclear reactor, and Wernher von Braun, the genius behind the Apollo moon missions. Their theory was grounded in a terrifyingly simple piece of logic: energy never dies. Every sound wave we speak, every light ray that bounces off our skin doesn't just vanish. It weakens, it fragments, but it continues to vibrate in the ether like a deleted file on a cosmic hard drive. As a student of history and data, imagine the implications. If you have a sensitive enough receiver, you can reconstruct those fragments. You can tune in to the frequency of the past. You can watch history as it actually happened. Ernetti claimed the machine worked. He didn't just hear the past, he saw it. He claimed to have witnessed the tragic destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. He watched the founding of Rome in 753 BC. He even claimed to have observed the Roman senator Cicero delivering a speech in ancient Latin. But then he tuned into the year 33 A.D. Ernetti claims to have witnessed the final days of Jesus Christ. He said he saw the betrayal, the trial, and the agonizing climb to the crucifixion. In 1972, a famous Italian magazine published a photograph allegedly captured by the chronovisor. It was a close-up image of the face of Christ in his final moments. The world went into a frenzy. If this was real, the foundations of history and religion were about to be rewritten. But this is where the mystery turns into a nightmare. Within weeks of the publication, the Vatican moved in. The machine was reportedly dismantled and hidden in the deepest vaults of the secret archives. The scientists were silenced, scattered to the corners of the earth. And Father Ernetti? He was forbidden from ever speaking of the device again under the threat of excommunication, the ultimate punishment for a man of God. Critics called it a hoax. They claimed to have found a wooden carving in an Italian church that looked identical to the chronovisor photo. They said Ernetti was a dreamer who let his imagination run wild. But why would a high-ranking monk, a man of immense intellect and faith, risk his soul and his reputation for a lie? And if the data wasn't real, why did the Vatican pass an official decree in 1988? That decree stated that anyone using a device with these characteristics to peer into the past would be instantly cast out of the church. You don't make laws against things that don't exist. If the chronovisor was real, it was the most dangerous weapon ever created. Because if you can see the past, you can see every lie ever told by a king, a priest, or a government. You could see the truth behind every conspiracy that has shaped our world. Father Ernetti died in 1994. On his deathbed, his friends say he whispered one last truth. The machine was real, but it was too dangerous for the world we live in. We live in an age of big data and AI surveillance, but perhaps the most important data is the one we are never allowed to see. I'm Stories by KS. History is a locked vault, and sometimes the key is hidden in plain sight. Subscribe if you're brave enough to keep searching for the truth.
But to understand why the Vatican was so terrified, we have to look closer at the men who stood beside Father Ernetti. This wasn't just a group of monks in a basement. This was the Scientific 12. Imagine the scene. A hidden laboratory, shielded from the world, where the boundaries between ancient mysticism and cutting-edge nuclear physics simply dissolved. Enrico Fermi, the architect of the atomic age, was a man who dealt in the fundamental building blocks of the universe. He understood that matter is never truly lost. And Wernher von Braun? He spent his life looking at the stars, calculating how to break the bonds of Earth. Why would these giants of science risk their reputations on a time-viewing device? The answer lies in the data. They weren't looking for ghosts. They were looking for the Chronos echo. Think of the world as a giant recording disc. Every time you speak, you are etching a groove into the atmosphere. The sound fades to our ears, yes, but to a high-frequency receiver, that sound is still there, vibrating at a level we haven't learned to measure. Ernetti and his team didn't build a camera, they built a trans-dimensional tuner. They were decoding the background noise of the universe. One of the most chilling proofs Ernetti offered wasn't a religious vision, it was a play. Specifically, the Thyestes, a lost tragedy by the Roman poet Quintus Ennius. For centuries, historians only knew of a few lines of this masterpiece. It was a deleted file of human history. But Ernetti claimed the chronovisor allowed him to sit in the front row of its debut in Rome 2 centuries before the birth of Christ. He didn't just tell people about it, he transcribed it. He wrote down the entire play, word for word, in ancient Latin. When scholars examined his text, they were stunned. The vocabulary, the rhythm, the specific nuances of a dead language, it was perfect. How could a 20th century monk fabricate a lost Roman masterpiece without a single error? Unless, of course, he was actually there, watching the actors breathe. But the Thyestes was just a test. The real mission was more dangerous. As the machine grew more powerful, the team began to realize a horrifying truth. If you can see the past, you can see the true history of every powerful institution on Earth. You could see the secret meetings where wars were planned. You could see the hidden faces of those who truly pull the strings. The chronovisor was a truth machine in a world built on secrets. Rumors began to circulate that the team had looked too far. They hadn't just watched the crucifixion, they had watched the secret negotiations of the Middle Ages. They had seen the moments when the powerful chose greed over humanity. They had the data that could dismantle empires. Suddenly, the funding vanished. The laboratory was sanitized. Enrico Fermi and von Braun returned to their public lives, never speaking of the project again. It was as if a giant hand had reached down and hit the delete key on the entire operation. Before his death, Ernetti claimed the machine was destroyed. But in the world of high-stakes intelligence, things are rarely destroyed, they are simply moved. Deep web whistleblowers and rogue researchers have long whispered that the chronovisor wasn't scrapped, they believe it was upgraded. If a tube-powered machine from the 50s could see the past, what could a modern quantum computer do? What if the surveillance state isn't just watching our present, but is actually mining our past? Think about it. In a world of digital footprints, we are told that our data is permanent, but the chronovisor suggests that our biological footprints are just as permanent. Every step you take, every secret you whisper is being recorded by the very air around you. We are living in a library of our own making, and we don't even have the key. The Vatican Decree of 1988 wasn't just a warning to the faithful, it was a legal wall. By making the device forbidden, they ensured that any discovery of the past that contradicts their narrative can be dismissed as illegal or demonic. It is the ultimate firewall for history. As we move deeper into the 26th year of this century, the technology to listen to the walls is becoming a reality. Scientists are already using high-speed cameras to reconstruct audio by watching the vibrations of a potato chip bag in a silent room. We are catching up to Ernetti. The data is waiting. The question is, are we ready to face the truth of what we've done? Father Ernetti's final warning wasn't about the machine itself, it was about us. He believed that if humanity knew the truth, if every mask was stripped away and every lie exposed, the social order would collapse. We aren't built for total truth, we are built for stories. And some stories are guarded by the highest walls in the world for a reason.